1981, a legendary partnership between George Lucas and Steven Spielberg brought a new kind of hero to the big screen. He wasn't a superhero or a space traveler. He was an archaeology professor in a fedora who was just as likely to get punched in the face as he was to find a priceless relic. From the jungles of Peru to the desert sands of Egypt, Indiana Jones took us on a relentless hunt for the most dangerous artifact in history. It was a film that perfectly blended the cliffhanger serials of the 1930s with the cutting-edge practical effects of the 80s, giving us a bolder chase for the ages and a finale that literally melted our minds. So dust off the fedora, grab your bullwhip, and avoid the snake pit as Ben Carpenter, Nicholas Pepin, and I discuss Raiders of the Lost Ark from 1981 on this episode of the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. Well, welcome to the show, everyone. I am your host, Tim Williams. Joining me in the map room today are two guys who know exactly how to handle a priceless cult classic without setting off any poison darts. First up, he's a man who knows it's not the years, it's the mileage. Please welcome back to the show, Mr. Ben Carpenter. How you doing, Ben?
Thank you. I'm doing well. I would say it's the years and the mileage, though, for me.
Get both. And back again is the host of Pop Culture Roulette and a man who knows never grab a medallion out of the fire with his bare hands. It's Nicholas Pepin. How you doing, Nicholas?
I don't know that I know that. Well, I did the last two. Well, I did number 2 and number 3, so I guess
Right.
it's time to actually go back around and do number 1. So
You may be some of our day one listeners who have been here from the beginning, but 6 years ago, I started the podcast, and Raiders of the Lost Ark was the very first episode that we did. But we've come such a long way, and I've been thinking about, all the old episodes and how I was trying to figure things out as we were going along. And I wanted to possibly re-record some of our first season episodes. And so that's what we're doing here. So like Nicholas said, he was on our Temple of Doom episode, our Last Crusade episode, and now he is joining us for the Raiders of the Lost Ark. So we're going back, and so this is the first episode, or kind of like recording of an episode that we did back 6 years ago. So for those of you who heard the very first episode we did, which was me and Jeff Tinkle, who's never been on the show again since then. How you doing, Jeff? Sorry I haven't had you back, but I was still trying to figure out the show. Now I think the format is where I like it. So let's go back and do some of those big movies that we covered in the first season and doing it again. So this is Raiders of the Lost Ark revisited somewhat in this episode, but I'm glad to have Nicholas and Ben to talk about this one. This is going to be a fun one. So it's great to have the team together. Before we start digging, I have to know, if you're standing in that temple, are you swapping the idol for a bag of sand, or are you just running for the exit the second you see a cobweb?
I was watching that last night, and I was thinking, man, if I'm Alfred Molina, I am out way before he finally dipped. Like, I'm just like, I'm not sure I enter that cave, let alone like the second we hit the first couple traps. I'm just, you know what? Ain't worth it. I'm out.
Right. What about you, Ben?
Well, I mean, it's a nice idol if you can get it, if you can get your hands on it.
Right.
So
right.
I don't know. Could be worth the poison darts.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just amazed that he was like, he could look at a gold statue or whatever, and in his mind be able to calculate how much sand that in a bag it's actually going to weigh. So, but anyway, lots of questions that never got answered as I rewatched it today, and that's okay. All right, but let's go to our regular format. You know how I do it. So, gentlemen, we'll start with Ben. When did you see Raiders of the Lost Ark for the first time?
Yesterday.
No, you didn't.
I was unfamiliar with this film. No. Well, I don't remember I don't remember seeing it for the first time because I remember seeing it multiple times in the theater.
Yeah.
I do remember going to see it once. I think it was over a year after it came out. I mean, this played in the theaters for that long.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It was over a year, and I guess there were some extended family members who hadn't gotten to see it yet or something. So we went, like 20 of us and in my family carpooled to this theater to see it. And I do remember that. I don't even know if that theater's still there anymore, but yeah. Saw it lots of times in the theater.
What about you, Nicholas?
Well, I am not that young, but I'm definitely not old enough to have seen this one in the theaters. I genuinely think I did not see this one until after I saw Last Crusade.
Okay.
I don't remember. But I also can't promise you that I know it was VHS. I know it was a rental. I don't know if this is one of those that my parents would have watched ahead of time and been like, yeah, we're not showing them this one just yet, especially because of the ending. But yeah, I know that I saw it later, and I have a distinct memory that I didn't see it until after I saw Last Crusade and was like, wow, this is a really good movie. I want to see the other ones now.
Okay. Yeah. I'm kind of like Ben. Like, I don't have a distinct memory of seeing it in the theater, but I remember going to see Temple of Doom in the theater, and definitely seeing A Last Crusade in the theater. But I remember the VHS, seeing like friends having the VHS copy and watching it at their house. I remember being on like cable a lot, but I want to say that I saw it in the theater. I just don't remember. And it might have been either a re-release or, like you said, like was much later when it came out. But yeah, I mean, we were big Star Wars fans, Harrison Ford fans, and so but it's so ingrained in my memory of like one of those. It's part of my childhood. Like we talked about, a lot of the movies here was like trying to remember when I saw it the first time was like trying to remember like when you took your first breath. Like I know I did it. I just don't remember when the first time was. So how long has it been since you rewatched it before rewatching it for the podcast? For those that did rewatch it for the podcast.
I mean, it's been a minute. It's one of those, like, I probably rewatched it a couple years ago when I was rewatching Temple of Doom and Last Crusade. I know I played a lot of the Lego Indiana Jones games, so sometimes I get, kind of conflated into whether or not I watched the movie again or I just spent that much time playing the video game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's not one that I don't watch. I don't watch it near as much as I should, but
Yeah, I saw it a couple years ago as well. I mean, it's one of those movies that I don't think I've ever gone more than a couple of years without seeing it, without watching it.
Yeah.
That there's always some kid or, one of my wife's little cousins or whatever who hasn't seen it before. And I'm like, oh, let's pop it on and watch. I'll watch it with you. So
Gotcha.
yeah, I've seen it countless times.
Yeah, I mean, I know I watched it again back in 2020 when we started the podcast. I want to say I rewatched all of them again when before Dial of Destiny came out a couple years ago. So that's probably the last time I sat down and watched it. But they run the Indiana Jones movies on Paramount Channel. They run that a lot of weekends or a lot of holidays. So if it's on, I'm going to sit and watch at least 30 to 45 minutes of it, depending on at what point I come in. So yeah, so it's definitely one that I've watched a lot and continue to watch kind of on a regular rotation. All right, well, before Indy ever set foot in that temple, there was a story, origin, and pre-production. I've got 5 questions about how this legendary character was born. Your job is simple. Tell me if the history I'm giving you belongs in a museum or if it's just a tall tale. All right, gentlemen, are you ready to choose wisely? Let's play Risky Quizzness. Risky Quizzness. Risky Quizzness. So you guys know how we play the game. I give you 5 true or false questions. You guys can collaborate on a guess, and there's nobody to kind of break the tie, so you have to come to a consensus. And we'll see how well you do. This movie's pretty well known, so a lot of this I think you might do pretty good on it. So, all All right, here we go. Number 1, true or false? The idea for Indiana Jones was first pitched by George Lucas to Steven Spielberg while they were building a sandcastle on a beach in Hawaii. True or false?
I know they were in Hawaii because George Lucas likes to run away when his movies premiere. I don't know about the sandcastle part.
It sounds, the sandcastle part sounds a little bit familiar with me, to me. So I will go with true. Yeah.
Let's go true.
All right, you are correct. As Nicholas said, during the opening weekend of Star Wars in 1977, Lucas was hiding out in Hawaii to avoid the stress of the premiere. And when Spielberg mentioned he always wanted to direct a James Bond movie, Lucas told him, "I've got something better," and pitched The Adventures of Indiana Smith at that point. It was not Indiana Jones. So, yeah. I don't know if they were truly building a sandcastle on the beach, but that's how the question was presented. So don't get too caught up in the details. No, Nicholas likes to make sure it's exactly correct. But all right. Number 2, true or false? The name Indiana was chosen because George Lucas wanted a name that sounded rugged and Midwestern, eventually settling on the name of a city he saw on a map of the United States. True or false?
That's false.
It's false.
That is false. Yes.
Because he named him after a dog, and then by the third movie they worked that storyline into the
absolutely
the movie.
Absolutely correct. Yep. It was the name of George Lucas's beloved Alaskan Malamute. Yep. Knew that was going to be an easy one for you. All right. Number 3. So 2 for 2 so far. In the very first story conferences, Lucas and Spielberg envisioned Indiana Jones as a wealthy playboy nightclub archaeologist who used his findings to fund a lavish lifestyle. True or false?
Feel like that one's true.
No, I've never heard that. That seems a little out there.
Because it's closer to the James Bond thing that he wanted to do.
I know it was originally conceived as a James Bond style movie.
I feel like that's true.
I'll go along with you.
All right, let's do it.
In Nicholas we trust. It is true. Early transcripts of the meetings show they initially discussed Indy being a Burt Reynolds type, quote unquote, character who spent his nights in tuxedos. It was later decided to make him a more rugged, dirt under the fingernails professor to ground the character. All right. They're going for a clean sweep. Got 2 more. See if they can do it. Number 4, true or false? Danny DeVito was the original choice to play the role of Sallah, but he had to turn it down due to his filming schedule for the sitcom Taxi.
Sounds a little close to another true fact.
Yeah, I think that one's
sounds like
false.
I think you might have taken a true fact and sort of turned it into a false fact.
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to go with you on that one, Ben. I think that one's false.
And the streak comes to an end. That is true. Spielberg was a huge fan of DeVito, but the scheduling conflict led them to cast John Rhys-Davies instead. Davies originally thought the character was written as a shorter comedic type and was surprised he actually got the part. So I don't know if I could have seen that. That would have been a very different Sallah if it was Danny DeVito for sure. So
would have been a very different Sallah.
Yeah. All right, we're still doing good. You're 3 out of 4. Let's see if you can, finish on a high note. Number 5. True or false? The screenplay for Raiders was written by Lawrence Kasdan, who at the time was an unknown writer who got the job after showing Lucas his script for The Empire Strikes Back. True or false?
He was not the original writer of Empire Strikes Back. So, but he did write this. But yeah, I believe he came in later on Empire Strikes Back and finished it up after the original writer had started on it. So
what say you, Nicholas?
I think Ben might be right. I can't remember where Lawrence Kasdan was in this stretch of writing Empire Strikes Back and in the George Lucas universe. So yeah, I don't feel good about it, but I think I'm going to go false as well.
This is why you trust your teammates. It is false. So Ben was right. It was actually the other way around. Lucas hired Kasdan to write Raiders after being impressed by a script for Continental Divide. It was during their work on Raiders that Lucas realized Kasdan was the perfect person to help him finish the script for Empire Strikes Back.
All right, well, 4 out of 5 is not bad.
4 out of 5 is not bad.
I'll take it.
Yeah. Good job. All right. Well, let us know how well you did if you were playing along with us. Send us an email, message, or a social media, or message on social media. And you can also leave us a comment on YouTube if that's where you're watching the episode. So, all right. Well, let's talk about the cast. A few of these we've talked about already because we've talked about the other two Indiana Jones movies as well. But we'll start with, of course, Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. After making his screen debut in 1966 and early supporting roles in the films American Graffiti in 73 and The Conversation in 74, he achieved global stardom for portraying Han Solo in the space opera film Star Wars 1977, a role he reprised in 4 subsequent films for the franchise spanning the next 4 decades. He also received recognition for his portrayal of Rick Deckard in Blade Runner franchise in 82 and 2017, Jack Ryan in the action thriller films Patriot Games in 92 and Clear and Present Danger in 94. These roles established him as an action hero and one of Hollywood's most bankable stars from the late 70s into the early 2000s, and he's still going strong today. Of course, we all know it's pretty well common knowledge that he was not the first choice for Indiana Jones. Who was the first choice for Indiana Jones?
See, this is where you got us on this question, because the story is that Tom Selleck had originally been cast, but he had to drop out because he wasn't able to be there because of the production schedule for Magnum PI.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you got us, because we were thinking you were trying to trick us with that, because that's the exact same story, but
right,
Magnum PI, not Taxi.
Yep. So, yep, that's right. Steven Spielberg's choice was Tom Selleck. George Lucas didn't want to use Harrison Ford because he had him in his other movies, and he didn't want to be compared to, oh gosh, it just left me. Scorsese, yeah, of having, was it Robert De Niro was in all of his movies, so he didn't want to have Harrison Ford be like his Robert De Niro, but Selleck couldn't take the role because he was committed to Magnum PI, even though the series did not go into production until Raiders filming had already wrapped. And Selleck was actually, in fact, in Hawaii waiting for the series to start as the final scenes that were filmed in the opening sequence were being shot in Hawaii. So he was actually there while they were filming Raiders of the Lost Ark. But he did do an episode called Legend of the Lost Art in 1988, which parodied Raiders of the Lost Ark, complete with hat, whip, and booby traps. So he got to live out some of that fantasy of being
consolation
Indiana Jones.
prize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would say, like, in 88, I think Magnum PI was definitely on his way out, kind of past its prime at that point. So,
and I like Tom Selleck, but I still think that Harrison Ford was the right choice.
Oh,
ultimately.
for sure. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, for George to feel that way, I mean, you can do a lot worse than to have Harrison Ford be in all your movies.
Right, exactly. So, and there's even watching it again today, there's a few scenes where I'm like, him and Han Solo are so alike in certain aspects. Like, that was a very Han Solo thing for him to do, which I thought was interesting. But filming those two pretty close together, I mean, coming right out of Empire Strikes Back into Raiders, I'm sure Han Solo was very much still in his mind. So, but I agree. There is Harrison Ford is the Indiana Jones. There's no one else that could have.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine anyone else, and it's hard to imagine him being named Indiana Smith as well. That just does not work.
I don't know. That was that had to be one of the. We'll just put this here. We'll change it later. Had to be kind of a thing. Of course, then we got Karen Allen as Marion Ravenwood. She made her film debut in the comedy Animal House in 78, which soon followed by a small role in Woody Allen's romantic comedy drama Manhattan in 79, and a co-lead role in Philip Kaufman's coming-of-age film The Wanderers in 79. She also played opposite Al Pacino in Cruising in 80. She later co-starred in Shoot the Moon in 82, Starman in 84, and Scrooged with Bill Murray in 1988, which of course we talked about her in that episode. Allen actually expressed some disappointment in the film, although her performance had provided many new opportunities. She lamented that her character had been motivated more by her relationship with Jones and money than with her father and his obsession with the Ark, which until I read that, I didn't really think about that, but that is true. Like, when going back and rewatching it, like, the reason that Indy went to her was because of her relationship with her father. But after they have that discussion in the bar, like, her father is really never mentioned again for the rest of the movie. Like, that's not really, it doesn't seem to be her motivation at all. So
yeah, because there was like, wasn't part of it like he was missing?
Yeah.
And I don't remember them ever bringing it back up, and I don't know why it never occurred to me until I was watching it last night that I was like, "Wait a minute." Like, I just kept waiting for them to, like, find him somewhere, and I'm like, they never do.
Right. Because who they find in, I know we're jumping, because who they find in Crystal Skull is not her father, but it's like is like her brother or a cousin or something.
It's been a long. I have watched Raiders of the Lost Ark many times since I've watched Crystal Skull.
No,
I've erased that one from my memory.
I'm not even sure if I watched that one before preparing for Dial of Destiny. So yeah, so I was trying to think of that when I was watching it today. I was like, who was the guy they found that was, was about the aliens? But anyway, so of course, I always go for the rumor mill of who other actresses that auditioned for the role. So here are some names on the list: Jane Seymour, Barbara Hershey, Mary Steenburgen, Amy Irving, Dee Wallace, Valerie Bertinelli, Patty D'Arbonaville, I can't do that right, Stephanie Zimbalist, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Deborah Winger were all considered for the role of Marion. Sean Young was used as Marion in Screen Test with Tom Selleck. Tim Matheson and John Shea were used for Karen Allen's Screen Test. Young would later star opposite Ford in Blade Runner in '82, and Wallace would co-star in Steven Spielberg's E.T. the Extraterrestrial with Peter Coyote, who also read for the role of Indiana Jones. Pretty interesting there. I like Karen Allen. I think she was good for the role. Anybody in that list you think would have been a good runner-up?
There are a couple of them that maybe could have pulled it off, but it's so indelibly Karen Allen at this point. Like, it's hard to envision anybody else.
Yeah.
But it's been an ongoing problem, I think, with the '80s movies that we've talked about on many other episodes. It's the female character is so not poorly written, but so generically written that I think, like, if Michelle Pfeiffer or Barbara Hershey or Mary Steenburgen had done it, like, I don't know how different it would have been. I mean, they wrote the female character better for Raiders of the Lost Ark than they did for Temple of Doom, which I know we had a long conversation about.
Yeah.
Marion is definitely an example of a stronger female character from this era, I would say. But yeah, I could picture maybe Deborah Winger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it's just because they're both brunettes or whatever. But
yeah,
there's something.
Deborah Winger has that kind of like a tough. She's kind of like a tougher person. I think Valerie Bertinelli is kind of another one I think would have probably brought a little spunk. Has kind of that same kind of spunk that Karen Allen has.
Yeah, it's odd that they were considering so many TV actors in a time when that was not. There was not much crossover from TV to movies. It was sort of frowned upon that you were either TV
one
people.
or the other.
Right.
Now it's you want to be on TV, and movies is just like a bonus. But
interesting to think about. But I agree. I like Karen Allen. I thought she was great in the role. Very feisty. So I think she's, and I was going to ask this question, like, unfortunately, we didn't talk about this when I recorded the first time, but I'm just kind of thinking about the comparisons. We have Han Solo to Indiana Jones. You think Marion is a little like Princess Leia in the sense of like strong female lead that has this romantic bond with Harrison Ford's character?
I mean, in a way.
Or am I stretching?
I mean, I guess in a way, it's kind of, they start a little antagonistic at the beginning, and by the end, it's a a little bit more. And though with this one, there's clearly way more backstory.
True.
Like we're not privy to. Like it's almost like this should be Raiders of the Lost Ark Part 2, because like there's this whole history between Marion and Indy that we aren't privy to. Like we kind of pick up context clues where like Han and Leia meet for the first time, and then,
Yeah. And you don't even get to that until like Star Wars was not really established. It's very much established in Empire Strikes Back, that the attraction between the two. Excuse me. So yeah, I could see this one was a little bit more. I'm just thinking about strong female characters and that bond with like the Han Solo, Indiana Jones type. But I think they're both different. I just thought it was interesting kind of comparison. But anyway, we won't Miranda there. Meander. That's the word. Meander.
We won't do either.
Yeah, words come sometimes. All right, so we got Paul Freeman as Renee Belloc. That was always one of my favorite like villain names, Belloc, especially the way Harrison Ford says it. Internationally, he's known for playing this role in Raiders of the Lost Ark. He also played the evil wine baron Gustav Riebman on season 4 of the soap opera Falcon Crest from 84 to 85. He was also the supervillain. He likes playing villains. Supervillain Ivan Ooze in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie in 1995, which I obviously didn't see. His other credits include Morlang.
You didn't see my...
I was not a Power Rangers person.
No, I'm kidding. Sorry. Please go ahead.
No problem. His other credits include Morlang in 2001, When I'm 64 in 2004, Hot Fuzz, which is one of my favorites, in 2007, and Hard Boiled Sweets in 2012. I don't
remember him in Hot Fuzz.
Yeah, I think it's a small role. Like I think he's one of the theater people. I think it's been a while since I watched Hot Fuzz, but that's definitely one of my favorites. Great movie. Any thoughts on Paul Freeman before we move on?
He was a serviceable villain. I mean,
yeah.
All right, sounds good.
I think that's
works for me.
Yeah, he was Belloc.
He was Belloc. John Rhys-Davies as Salah. He was introduced to a new generation of fans in the blockbuster trilogy Lord of the Rings in the role of Gimli the Dwarf. He has also had leading roles in Victor Victoria in 82, The Living Daylights in 87, and King Solomon's Mines in 85, which of course was very Indiana Jones-like. Oh, and I was going to say, talking about Danny DeVito as Salah, he had his, Romancing the Stone, they say, has given, somewhat inspired by Indiana Jones. So I guess he got to kind of play a little bit of that type of role, even very different. But
well, and you said that John Rhys-Davies was afraid that they had wanted him to be a smaller character, and then he went ahead and did Lord of the Rings, where
he was a small character.
Well, I would say one of my all-time favorite John Rhys-Davies roles is on that show Sliders.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. I had that listed as well. So from the Fox, and that was like mid-90s, early to mid-90s when that came on.
Yeah, early mid-90s, and then it moved over to Sci-Fi Channel for a couple seasons before.
Right. Yeah. I don't think I watched it when it was on Sci-Fi, but I watched it when it was on Fox. So yeah, that was a good one. All right, moving right along. I'm not doing a full, we're covering the highlights here. Denholm Elliott as Marcus Brody. In the 60s, he appeared in King Rat in 65 and Alfie in 66. He won a BAFTA Best Supporting Actor Award for his role as the butler in Trading Places 83, which we've covered already, and followed with awards for his roles in A Private Function 84 and Defense of the Realm in 85, as well as receiving an Academy Award nomination for A Room with the View in 86. Marcus Brody, one of my favorite characters. He's much more fun in Last Crusade.
I was about to say the exact same thing.
They definitely give him a lot more to do in that one, but he's still good in this role. So, but he'll always be the butler in Trading Places to me as well.
I like the line, "Care to wet your whistle, Marcus?" What does he say? I'd rather spit in your face, but since I haven't any spit.
Yeah, that was in Last Crusade. Yeah, good line. All right, and then Nicholas mentioned already, Alfred Molina appears as Jones' traitorous guide, Satipo, I think it's right. And this was his film debut. His other notable films include Prick Up Your Ears, 87, Boogie Nights in 97, Chocolat in 2000, The Da Vinci Code in 2006. He also voiced characters in Rango, Monsters University, Ralph Breaks the Internet, and Frozen 2. And of course, he was Doc Ock, Otto Octavius in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, as well as Spider-Man No Way Home in 2021. Yep. This was his film debut, which I think, after seeing him and all the things I've seen later, like when I went back and watched this probably 20 years ago, didn't realize I was Alfred Molina until, man. But yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of weird that he makes it only like 6 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of those, like, you go back and you watch it and you're like, that he was in this movie?
Right.
Because when he did it, he was nobody. Like, I mean, he was just a glorified extra at this point, you know?
Right. But he has such a, a memorable part. Like, even though I didn't know that's who he was, like, that's a character that I always remembered from the movie because that opening sequence is so fantastic anyway. So, yeah, definitely a memorable character for his first role. So, good on him. And then I will mention Pat Roach as the huge, bald, mustached Nazi mechanic who fistfights Indy until he gets chopped up by the plane propeller. He also plays several other roles in Raiders. In fact, he appears in every entry of the Indiana Jones movie in Tetralogy. Is that Tetra? They put a word in here I've never seen before.
Tetralogy?
Yeah.
Well, there's 5 now.
Yeah, I'm going to change it. In fact, he appears in every film entry of the Indiana Jones franchise. He is Steven Spielberg's preferred go-to person when Spielberg needs an oaf, an ogre, or some oversized person causing trouble. So yes, Indiana Jones fights him in Raiders of the Lost Ark, again in Temple of Doom, and again in Last Crusade, and then I think again in, I know he was in the most recent one, I think, or maybe he wasn't in the last one. But yeah.
I never realized that he was in any other ones. I never spotted him.
Yeah, I think, they disguise him to like look.
Yeah, they throw a mask on him or a hat or something just to make him look different. But yeah, no, he was one of the big Nazis that he was fighting in Last Crusade as well.
Yeah.
Like on the tank, I think. But
yeah, I think it is the guy on the tank. Yeah, in Last Crusade. So, yep. And he's he's the big guard in Temple of Doom when he's freeing the kids, the child slaves that he fights in the caves. Pretty sure that's the same one. But we just recently covered Clash of the Titans, and Pat Roach was in that movie as well. So 2 for 2 recently. All right, anybody else in the cast that I didn't cover or didn't mention you wanted to mention or cover?
No.
Who is the guy who owns the plane at the beginning?
That is the producer, Frank Marshall.
Right. That's it.
Yeah.
I knew it was some kind of cameo.
Yeah, it was a cameo,
yeah.
And not like Frank. Yeah, not the Frank Marshall that was the director, Penny Marshall's brother.
Gary Marshall?
Gary Marshall. I knew I was going to get that wrong. As soon as I said it, I was like, his name wasn't Frank. Yeah, so Frank Marshall, the producer, not Gary Marshall. So, yeah.
He's married to Kathleen Kennedy, I believe. Or was, please.
Yeah.
Are they still married? I don't know.
I don't know.
Is Frank Marshall even still alive? Okay.
Well, anyway,
I digress.
Thank you. All right, let's jump into iconic favorite scenes. Boy, this is going to be a tough one to nail down. When someone says to you, Raiders of the Lost Ark, what's the first scene that pops in your head? I'll let Nicholas go first on this one.
I mean, I'm going to take the obvious and just knock it out of the way. The sword fight where he's running through the crowd and the big Arab guys starts swinging all the swords around and does all the stuff, and then Andy just pulls out his gun and shoots him.
Right.
Yeah, that is one of the immediate scenes I think of when I think of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those movies that's impossible to pick one. But, for me, the truck chase sequence, like some of the best stunts ever put on film, and the strongest argument against CGI these days, and why, like, when you do it for real, it makes
it's so much better,
that much more thrilling. So yeah.
I agree 100%. I can't believe you guys left this on the table. The boulder, the rolling boulder at the beginning, like that
it's on my list. That whole cold open.
Exactly. Like I said, I'm not surprised we all picked a different one because there's so many like iconic scenes in this movie. The snake pit where the cobra is like face to face with Indiana Jones. The end where they're tied to the pole and everything's happening at the end. So
I didn't go down and get my DVD copy. I just watched it on Disney Plus because it was just easier. And man, the special effects on the end I don't know if it was just my TV or the digital, they don't hold up as well, like in the transfer. I mean,
Yeah.
I would say I agree with you that practical is the way to go when it comes to that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I think maybe cleaning that up with CGI would have been a little better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
But I think
definitely,
that's just the difference between watching something that was made in 1981, trying to watch it on 2026 technology.
Oh, for sure.
It does reveal a lot of the flaws
Mm-hmm.
that we didn't see in a movie theater in
Well, yeah.
the early 80s.
But you know, too, there are certain scenes in this movie that I think even as a kid, even though I knew it was fake, it didn't bother me. And I think that's where I'm going to go on a rant. Welcome to my TED Talk. I think that's what we're missing in today's movies is we want it to look so perfect or so real that we almost ruin it. Like I want to know that it's not real. You know, like the guy's face melting. As a kid, I knew that wasn't his real face melting. So I would that, you know, was still freaky to see. Of course it was. But like there's a scene, I think it's during the chase scene where one of the cars like goes off a cliff and you can tell it's like, you know, superimposed on the background. Like it's totally fake. But as a kid, I didn't care. It was still cool. I think I noticed this time when he drops the staff down into the Well of Souls, that's an animated staff. Like they didn't really drop a stick. Like when I watched it today, you could tell that wasn't a real stick that dropped. That might have been my first time noticing that, but
Now I'm gonna have to watch it
you
again.
can be watching. And I have my Blu-rays, so I watched mine on Blu-ray today when I rewatched it. So, which was pretty decent. But I agree, the effects at the end definitely date it with like those, you know, the spirits kind of or ghosts kind of moving, which I also think was very Steven Spielberg, like late 70s, early 80s, because you know from coming out of Close Encounters of the Third Kind and uh those kind of things like Poltergeist. Yeah, like it was very, very reminiscent of those effects that they had back then. Even made me think of and there's a scene in Conan the Barbarian that has kind of like the spirits that look very similar to that too. So even that's not Spielberg, but still, though I think that's what dates it, that it's an 80s, like 81. But at the same time, like watching it today, like there's certain parts I'm like, put this movie up against another movie made in 1981 and like the quality of the film, like how good it looks, is like night and day. Like there are movies made in 1987 that look pale in comparison to the quality that you got on the screen. And I think, and I'll even say this, like even as a kid, I loved this movie, but like as the other ones came out, I didn't like it as much because I thought it was too slow. Like it kind of drags a little bit in the middle for a 10, like a, you know, 7 to 10-year-old kid. There's slow parts, but watching it again as an adult, like every frame matters. Like every part of the story is important. And so even though it's like, yeah, it's exposition or it's like setting up things later, but it's shot so well and it's told so well. Like it's just a beautiful movie. And so I think I appreciated some of those scenes a little bit more watching it as an adult.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're essential. Like I was thinking about that today, how so many of the movies, the action movies today, strive to be just a nonstop action, just drive
Right,
all the way
right.
through. And this movie does have those lulls, but I think it benefits from those. Like it just makes when it, you know, you learn a little bit about the character, like the scene on the ship where they're just like where he's telling Marion where it
Yeah.
hurts. And, you know,
Yeah.
like it's a little romantic scene. It's funny when she flips the mirror and, you know,
Yeah.
hits him and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But uh you need scenes like that, I think, for to make the action scenes that much more exciting.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's talk about favorite scenes, which will probably still fall under iconic, I'm sure, but any other favorite scenes you wanted to mention?
I mean, you brought it up, the fight with the big guy before he knocks him into the airplane.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Pat Roach, like that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's really hard to parse this movie and say this is favorite, this is not. I mean, I mean, top to bottom. And I think you're right. I think getting older, like you realize maybe what the adults saw in the movie when you were just a kid. Because, kids aren't smart, but, not granted, adults aren't much smarter, but, we at least have the patience to appreciate, the exposition like you were talking about. So
I think even the scene towards the beginning, after the opening with the boulder and everything, when we go back to his university and we see that he's sort of like a sex symbol among the students.
Right.
But then when they take him into the library and they're looking through the books and they're talking about the Ark of the Covenant, and the music that's playing sets this very like mysterious tone, and sort of just sets it, like, to me, that just like gets the audience excited. Like, you're going to see some cool stuff here. It's a little quiet scene. They're just talking with like this music under it, but it kind of sets the tone for what's to come, I think.
And something, I mean, I've seen it before, and I've always heard that, like, Spielberg and Lucas wanted to do a Bond movie, which I still hold, like, if Spielberg's still interested, he should do a Bond movie today.
Yeah.
But you can see the influence in having the cold open, having the just, the changing the scenes from one location to another, on the other side of the world, and not necessarily fully explaining how they got there. They were just like, and now we're here.
Right.
I love the invention of indie travel, where like basically it's just, here's a map and we're going to draw a line.
Oh yeah, I love that. Love it. Love it. One of my favorite parts. Yeah.
And
nobody's ever jet lagged. I love that too. Like, they're never tired.
But you can definitely see, while it's not really a James Bond movie, you can see the influence that James Bond had on the high point, the points of what they were trying to hit.
Yeah, I agree. Right. Moving. I'm looking at time too. So, all right. So, going back to, we'll go jump into some trivia here. We'll probably think of some other scenes as we go, but I wanted to mention about the giant boulder I mentioned earlier. On the bonus features DVD, which I guess Nicholas has, he can confirm. Sound designer Ben Burt said that in order to get the proper sound effects for the giant boulder, he and the sound crew tried pushing boulders down a hill, but the sounds they were getting weren't what they were looking for. Later that day, as they were leaving in a Honda Civic and coasting down a gravel embankment, Burt noticed that the sound was just what they were looking for, so he grabbed a microphone and held it near one of the Civic's rear tires to record the effect. So, if you want to know what the sound of a rolling boulder is, it's a Honda Civic going down a gravel embankment. So, which I thought was pretty fun. So,
oddly enough, I owned a 1981 Honda Civic. I don't remember ever making that noise, but
right.
Well, Ben Burt was, is or was, again, not sure if he's still alive, but a master of just like finding, like, if the TIE fighter sound is like well, I can't remember what it is, but like lightsabers, isn't it? He's like banging on electrical wires or something. Yeah. So he found all kinds of sounds just out in the wild and turned them into these iconic movie sound effects.
Yeah, just like I love this, the most of the body blow sounds, which I always love, they're just so strong in the movie, were actually created by hitting a pile of leather jackets with a baseball bat. So that's where they got that sound from. So, which I love. And then another little sound, which, the little sound Easter egg, of course, is when the pilot is cranking up the plane on the water, it makes the same noise as the Millennium Falcon starting up from Star Wars movies. So,
all right.
Okay.
Go back and listen.
Is there a Wilhelm scream?
There is. When one of the, and I heard it today because I'm glad you brought it up, when it's during the chase scene, when Indy's fighting the guy in the front and he goes from like the brake and then hits the gas and the one guy falls on the car behind him, he makes the Wilhelm scream when he's going to the car. So I
remember that now.
Yep. So yeah. All right. So some other trivia here. Despite having the dream team of George Lucas and Steven Spielberg behind the film, it was initially turned down by every studio in Hollywood. Only after much persuasion did Paramount agree to do it, which seems crazy. That let's see. I'm going to skip over a good bit of this.
Yeah, I mean, by this point, Spielberg had done Jaws and Close Encounters, and Lucas had two Star Wars
and
movies
Empire,
under his belt, and studios are going, nah, we're good. I mean,
these are the same people that like almost every one of them completely passed on Star Wars as well. So
true. Yeah.
But they were all kicking themselves by this point, you would think.
Right.
So yeah, doesn't make any sense.
They don't learn. They still don't learn.
Yeah,
no,
they
that's
still
true.
don't learn.
Yeah, okay. Never mind. It makes perfect sense.
Costume designer Deborah Noodleman based Indy's outfit, flying jacket, and fedora on Charlton Heston's in Secret of the Incas from 1954. In that film, Heston played a treasure-hunting adventurer who, after studying an ancient model map room, uses a beam of sunlight reflected off a crystal to pinpoint the location of the treasure. That sounds familiar. In the film, Heston also flies a hijacked airplane and goes down a river in an inflatable yellow raft, reminiscent of events in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, 1984. Yeah, there were a couple of things that I saw where they felt like Secret of the Incas, like that Raiders pretty much stole the idea from that movie, but yeah. And Harrison Ford didn't understand why Indiana Jones, being an archaeologist, would wear a leather jacket in the jungle and carry a bullwhip, and had a lot of things to say about it that I can't repeat on this podcast. So, that I read. All right. There's so much. There's so much that you can. I put way too much trivia in here. Let's see.
Well, there's the whole the origin of the shooting Nicholas's favorite scene.
Yeah.
You know,
that wasn't scripted. It was supposed to be a fully choreographed fight scene, but everybody was sick except for Steven Spielberg. He was the only one that didn't get sick because he only ate cans of SpaghettiOs during the filming.
He didn't eat the dates.
Yeah.
That the monkey ate.
Bad dates. So I think they said, what did Indiana Jones have? He was like super sick. I don't remember.
He had the. I think they said
some
the
kind
flu
of food
or something.
poisoning.
Yeah, it was something. Yeah. So
and he was just like, how about I do this instead? And they're like, oh, that's better.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah. And once again, becomes one of the most iconic scenes in film history, and it was totally improvised the day of. So you love that kind of stuff. So, this is since we talking about the Ark of the Covenant, I did find this was interesting. So, as Nicholas and I are former Bible college students, if Ben didn't know that. While Indy asks if the two U.S. officials ever went to Sunday school, he doesn't seem to have paid much close attention in class himself. Much of the Ark lore, he tells them, is not completely 100% accurate. It contains not the first broken tablets of the commandments, but the second set. It also contained a bowl of manna and Aaron's flowering staff from Deuteronomy 10 and Hebrews 9. It is carried into battle and around the walls of Jericho, which fall when trumpets are blown, but there is nothing in the Bible about it leveling mountains or shooting death rays. Oddly enough, he doesn't tell them about the two most significant precautions in the Bible: don't touch it from 2 Samuel, and don't look into it from 1 Samuel, though he apparently remembers the last part at the climax of the film when he tells Marion to close her eyes. It also brings plagues upon enemies who capture it. The reason for these prohibitions is that the Ark symbolizes the presence of God, serving as his throne or footstool. Happily, the Ark in the movie appears to be an accurate replica, however, as do the priestly robes that Belloc wears at the end.
It's an accurate replica except for R2D2 and C3PO. Or no, are they on the Ark or they're on the,
they're in one of the caves. They're in the tomb or one of the caves or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
I knew they were in there somewhere.
But yeah, I actually was a couple of years ago when I was still in Jacksonville. For a year, I taught a middle school Bible class for middle school boys at a school down there. And when we got to the Ark of the Covenant, I actually showed them the scenes from Raiders of the Lost Ark. The part where he talks about it in the book, and then when they're actually pulling it up and holding it, because that's a very accurate description, and they had to carry it on poles because they weren't allowed to touch it, so they had to use poles to carry it. So, yep. So there's your little Bible knowledge for today's episode. Don't get that very often here. I did not know this. The film was originally given an R rating. What? Because of the exploding head at the end. They didn't want the picture to be rated R, so they added layers of fire in front of his face to make it appear less graphic. And I'm like, that's less graphic than the two melting heads and all of the corpses that seem to always turn their head right at the person that's being scared by them. Yeah. So,
yeah. The MPAA was nonsensical back in the 80s.
Still kind of is. But I mean, it was this movie, Temple of Doom, and a couple other Spielberg movies that went a long way to went a long way to creating PG-13.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah. All right. That last little bit of trivia, then I do have a question. We'll start wrapping it up. So I have to talk about the fan theory that was popularized by the Big Bang Theory episode, The Raiders Minimization, states that Indiana Jones plays no role in the final outcome of the story, since despite his best efforts, the Germans still end up obtaining the Ark and killing themselves by opening it. In the absence of Indiana Jones, the Germans would have stolen the headpiece from Marion, made a correctly proportioned staff of Ra, and discovered the Ark themselves. It stands to reason that many Germans would have been killed during the first opening of the Ark, but they would have eventually figured out how to use the Ark as a weapon by keeping their eyes shut. However, it was Indiana Jones' presence at the end that they make the difference. He finally recovered the Ark after he killed the Germans on the island and delivered it to the United States, thus keeping it out of German hands during World War II. Also, Indy's intervention undoubtedly saved Marion from being tortured and killed by the Germans hunting the headpiece. So, as the scene points out, at least he got the girl. So,
yeah, I watched it a little more carefully this time to see, because I see, and I was like, yeah, no, it doesn't really hold water, because, I mean, I don't know if the Nazis ever even find Marion, let alone get in the right place,
Yeah,
so
because they were still digging in the wrong spot. It was only Indy that figured out where the real Well of Souls was. Sorry,
yeah, because Belloc was using the wrong
side of the medallion.
Well, and he was using the wrong dimensions.
Wrong dimensions, right?
Because he had interpreted the thing wrong.
The medallion.
Yeah. And so yeah, I don't know if they ever would have found it, let alone, I mean, so you could almost blame Indy for like allowing them to find it in the first place, but
right. All right, so go ahead, Ben. You were going to add anything to that discussion?
No, just other than who cares?
Right.
It's fun. I mean, I get it. Like, yeah, it's. I've always just. There's a certain level of you can over
analyze.
Yes, thank you. Just about anything. And that this is one of the most fun and well-made action films ever created. Like, yeah, I get that point, and I've heard it, but yeah, it's
it made for a funny scene in a sitcom, which was great. But yeah, it's
yeah.
But yeah, but there are things that, like, and I think it's probably things that other people have brought up that I see now when I watch the movie, like when Indy is under the truck and he uses his whip to be dragged by the truck, he doesn't pick the whip back up. It's still attached to the truck. So at what point does he get his whip back? So, which we talked about that a little bit in Last Crusade, because doesn't he use the whip to, like, he uses it on the tank for some reason, and we never figured out like how he got it. No, it was his shoulder bag. Somehow his shoulder bag got caught on the barrel of one of the guns, but you never see how it got on there and how he got free from it. So
it just returns to him like his hat.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, there are several times he uses the whip in a way that I'm not sure whips actually work. But as somebody who doesn't really use whips, I can't definitively say that that's how they don't work. But
right,
it just doesn't seem like that's how they work. But
yeah. And then at the end, after all the Nazis are dead, how do they get untied from the pole?
I don't know. Maybe the ghost came back out of the ark. And,
the
ghost is like, you didn't look, so we're gonna untie you.
It burned like it burned the Nazi symbol off the crate. It burned the ropes, so they got free. So anyway, we're not gonna dig too deep, but those are a few things that while I was watching, I was like, But like you said, man, who cares? We watch this movie to be entertained. We're not here to try to poke holes in it. We're not gonna do that ever. All right. Box office. Raiders of the Lost Ark was released in the U.S. and Canada on June 12th, 1981. It earned $8.3 million and topped the weekend box office. In its second weekend, it dropped to third place behind Cannonball Run and Superman 2. By the fourth week, it climbed to second, and in the sixth, it regained the top spot. It remained the number one for most of the next 9 weeks and stayed in the top 10 for 40 weeks. By early September, it was the top summer film, grossing approximately $125 million. But yeah, like Ben said, it went well past a regular, run in the theaters. It just, people kept going back to see it over and over again. So, all right, now it's time to take a look at how well this 80s flick holds up today. It's the Rewatchability and Nostalgia Meter. It's our way of measuring how enjoyable a movie is for repeat viewings, along with the waves of nostalgia it brings. If you're new, here's how it works. It's a 1 to 10 scale. Any number between 1 and 10 will do, but here are a few parameters to help you decide. At the bottom of the meter is a number 1, which says, I saw it once and that was enough. In the middle, at a 5, is a good rewatch every couple of years. And at the top, a number 10, the highly coveted, highly rewatchable, and full of nostalgia rating. So I will start with Ben. Ben, where does Raiders of the Lost Ark rank for you on the rewatchability and nostalgia meter?
Well, if you go back and you listen to previous podcast episodes where I've done this, I do not hand out high scores.
Right.
This is one of just a small handful of movies that I would not even have to think about and assign it a 10.
All right.
Every time, like we said earlier, if you, back when you used to flip channels on TV and you came across some channel was showing Raiders, well, you sat there and you watched the rest of Raiders.
Yep. And then you stayed to watch Temple of Doom and Last Crusade. Like, my day's shot. I'm going to sit here and watch all these movies back to back to back. So, and then when Crystal Skull comes on, you leave and go do whatever you're doing.
Yeah. You go clip your toenails or something more interesting than that movie.
Right. All right. What say you, Nicholas?
I mean, it's hard to disagree. I guess I don't know if I can give it a full on 10. But I kind of want to. I guess
nobody's stopping you.
The only reason that I'm stopping myself from giving it a 10 is that I don't watch it as often as I should.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm gonna go 9.
Okay, I respect that. I'm gonna go with Ben and give it a 10 as well. I think, yes, but I agree with you, Nicholas. I don't watch it as often as I probably should or want to, but at the same time, it's one that any time of the day, any time of the year, I would put it on and would enjoy watching it. Like, it doesn't need a special occasion to watch it. And I will say the reason this was the very first movie that we covered on the podcast is that I had a Facebook group called Movie Views, which is where the podcast kind of came out of, where I did a bracket, which of course Nicholas knows all about brackets, but I did an 80s movie bracket, and this one was ranked. It won the bracket at number 1 of the best 80s movies. So, I don't know if I would still say that today if I think it's the best 80s movie, but it's definitely in the elite of the 80s movies, so for sure. So, but yeah, I'm going to give it a 10 just because I think it's the nostalgia factor is super high. Like I said, there's not a part of my life where I didn't know about Star Wars, Indiana Jones. It's so ingrained in my childhood that any of the Indiana Jones movies that came out in the 80s, I'll say that, are enjoyable, even if some are better than others. And there's always that thing of like, which one do you rank higher? Like, I think Temple of Doom always ends up number 3. It depends on what day you're going to put Raiders over Last Crusade, and they kind of bounce back and forth. That's definitely how it is for me. I love Last Crusade so much, but even watching this again today, it's like, I'd kind of want to put it back up there, but they're very similar as well. Like there's a lot of similarities, which if you go back and listen to our episode about Last Crusade, that was intentional. Like after the reception that Temple of Doom got when they went to Last Crusade, like we want to get back to what made Raiders so great. And so they incorporate a lot of those same things, which is why I think those two are kind of like the best of the series for sure. All right.
Man,
But let us know Go ahead, Nicholas.
I think I was just going to co-sign on everything you just said. I mean,
yeah, I also co-sign.
Yeah. Is that your cat, Nicholas?
Yeah, she's mad, but she can get over it.
I was like, I heard this noise in the background. I was like, I think that's a cat. I was like, oh, Nicholas has cats.
Sounds like it's trying to speak English.
Yeah. What does the cat give it?
Well, she's old enough to have been around. She's watched it a couple times with me. So
how many meows does it get? So. All right, well, let us know where you think Raiders of the Lost Ark should rank on the Rewatchability Nostalgia Meter. Send us an email, let us know on social media, or leave us a comment in YouTube. All right, well, Ben, Nicholas, thank you so much for joining me for this revisiting of Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's been a lot of fun. Appreciate having you guys on the show for sure. All right, well, that's a wrap on another trip to the greatest decade of cinema. If we sparked a memory or helped you rediscover a classic, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. It truly helps the show reach more fans like you. To make sure you're always in the loop for our next deep dive, hit that follow or subscribe button. And if you want to keep the show running, consider becoming a partner at buymeacoffee.com. For more 80s goodness, our digital headquarters is always open at 80sflickflashback.com. And while you're there, check out our TeePublic store for original designs and movie-inspired merch that'll have you looking like a 1980s icon. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Nicholas. Appreciate you both being here. Thanks, everybody, for listening. For 80s Flick Flashback, I'm Tim Williams. Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?